your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction, as usual. Another win for...
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Win for Texas Tech, Chris, as Texas Tech gets win number one in conference play, 30-22 over Arizona State. And hey, they're not easy to get in conference. You got the first one knocked out. I think this is three years in a row that Joey McGuire has won the first conference game. So good on that. But not the prettiest at all times, but just kind of a slugfest of a football game where Texas able to get out in front and hold on.
Yeah, Arizona State pretty solid. And you just could never, pull away from them.
Yeah.
I think, again, this is a one-score game. We knew that this league was full of those last year. I don't know how much that is going to, there was a few blowouts in the league over the weekend, but I think those are going to be tough to come by, just because I think everybody's so similar, and especially week to week. And then you factor in who's available and healthy and weather and all that kind of stuff. But it was hey, if you figure out ways to win, I'm just not going to have too much issue with it. I mean, at times, are you making enough mistakes to where that's not going to be good enough to win? Probably, but that wasn't the case this past Saturday. And Arizona State came in with a lot of confidence, a really good rushing defense, a really good running game, and you just kind of, I heard Kenny Dillingham say after the game, man, if you take that first 8 or 9 minutes away of the game, we were in there, but basically he's talking about that 14-0 lead where you take the opening kickoff and kind of methodically go down the field, and then you force an interception and able to score there, and then you kind of kept them at arm's length really from that point on. Got a little dicey at a few different times, and you had to settle for some field goals late.
Sure.
But you always, somewhat kept them at arm's length and never, and this is a 30-16 game until a minute and a half left, but you do have to defend an onside kick and whatnot. So, but hey, man, I'll take 1-0 with all kinds of questions any day of the week, man. Sign me up.
Every stinking time. Yeah. I mean, it is much better than the alternative of looking really good in one area, but losing a football game or whatever. Yeah, this was it was not as gorgeous offensively as you saw the previous week against North Texas, but I think it was kind of designed that way. Coach McGuire's shown in the last 3 years, but if you get out in front like that, it's not necessarily conservative, but you're going to play safer. You didn't see the fourth downs come in to factor in at all, because the book's not, when you're up and out in front by a touchdown or two, a lot of times those midfield fourth down calls that we've seen so often in the last 2 years, they tell you to punt the ball in those situations. So yeah, I thought you weren't near as crisp offensively, but I still think your defense has improved every single week. You still give up a big play to Scattaboo, pardon me, on the
swing pass,
wheel route, swing pass. But outside of that, you held him at check for most of the day, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and he had a couple of touchdowns, but it wasn't. Here's what was interesting is that I think you came into the game, if you're Texas Tech, saying we have to really limit that and force Sam Levitt to beat us with his arm, and you kind of got yourself in those positions, and and Levitt just wasn't. He misfired some. I think you were able to pressure him some, where he had to throw some on the
Mhm.
run, and he missed a few of those because there were some guys that were open against a better quarterback or whatever. Maybe somebody makes those throws,
Yeah.
but he was unable to do that, especially consistently. And there was never the one play that just stung you. I mean, the swing pass was as close to 66 yards, I think, on that one,
Yep.
and they ended up, I think a play or two later, he ran one in a short yardage touchdown. But there were some guys downfield that were open, but I think, and then the other interesting part is that Coach Dillingham basically said, come, after the game was over, we wanted to invite them to run the ball.
Yeah.
Like we dared them to run it and showed them light boxes. And so what's interesting is that tells me they didn't feel like that you could win the game running the ball.
Hmm.
That they were more fearful of the explosives or the down the field plays, and they tried to do everything they could to take those away and force everything to be short and controlled and underneath. And you did a good enough job of manufacturing and producing and sustaining drives for the most part, enough times to where you won. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that was I wouldn't have guessed. I mean, it makes sense. I wouldn't have guessed that, as we're sitting here talking a week ago, going, yeah, Arizona State's going to just kind of give you the run. They're going to try to eliminate a lot of the other stuff. I wouldn't have thought, but that's what they did, and he said as much. He rattled off after the game. This is, like I think he asked the media like something to the effect of, "This is they only." Their longest completion was 16, 18 yards, right? And he's like,
Yep.
I bet average attempt was, whatever it was. He was hinting at that, they forced Texas Tech to throw a lot of short passes, but a lot of those worked. I mean, you scored on a couple of them, and a lot of those worked, and you were able to, kind of take what they give you, and just kind of made it happen. But that's where, by somebody coming in saying we're not going to let Taj, or we're gonna take Barron and the downfield stuff away. That's somebody saying we respect Taj. However, we don't, like, it's kind of, I guess, a knock on his speed, or just not a threat to where if he gets in the open field, look out. That's the only knock you have on him. But
Yeah.
he took his 117 yards and moved the chains enough, and it was and in some ways a pedestrian type game for him, even though he was over 100 and about 117 yards, and you're
Yeah.
now what, 8-2 with him going over 100 yards.
Hey, it's been a formula that's worked for Texas Tech, and you know there's a few stats that seem to be pretty telling to me, Level, and that's one, you're holding Arizona State to 3.1 yards per carry. That you knew that's what they're wanting to do coming in. You knew they're wanting to run the football with Scannaboo, but also with Levitt. I mean, that's probably the part that I haven't
Yeah.
seen talked about a whole lot post after the game, and it's Levitt has been dangerous with his legs. He's got that big playability, but you held him to 9 carries for 25 yards, 2.1 yards, I believe that is per carry, 2.8, pardon me. That might be the biggest part of your defense on Saturday was the ability to contain Sam Levitt and not let him beat you with his legs. Because
Yeah.
he had chances to beat you with his arm, and he was not able to connect a few times.
Yeah, I think Tim's group did a good job. It wasn't perfect. Like I said,
No.
there was some guys open on the back end at times. They were not able to connect, and maybe somebody down the line makes those plays. But Arizona State unable to do that. And I thought you moved him off of his spot enough and made him feel some pressure. I mean, that's what resulted in the first interception. But you're right. He a few runs and then gets a touchdown late in the game. But
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, I think that for the most part, yeah, you controlled that. That didn't hurt you. And we've seen over the years many, many times where the opposition's QB
Yeah.
burns you with his legs. I mean, 2 weeks ago we saw, that was a great example of that. But I I
Yeah.
thought defensively was again, not perfect, but
Sure.
and really the three fourth down stops were big. That doesn't show up in the
No,
turnover
absolutely.
category, but it should because that's what they are. It's a turnover on downs.
And that's maybe the difference in the game right there. Another difference maker, and this is a stat we haven't talked about a whole lot in Lubbock, Texas over the last 25 years. You controlled this game. I mean, you this was the number one team in the Big 12 when it came to clock control, time of possession, coming in through 3 weeks, and you had nearly 10 more minutes of possession than Arizona State. And that I think that's the part of that you were talking about earlier, the arm's length thing. You're able to just not necessarily coast, but it almost felt like coasting because of the ability to sustain long drives. Now, obviously, you want to see those get in the end zone more often than they did, but I mean, you played some keep away where they're not able to feed Scatterboo as much and wear down your defense as much. And I thought that was another big part was the ability to keep the offense on the field for a long time.
At times when you needed to.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think they're gonna, rewatch this and go, man, we left a lot out there and could have done it a bit more. But you're right. I mean, some teams get stubborn and you get sick of taking what they're giving you, or you don't have a good enough people
sure.
to make that hurt for the opposition. But you do. I mean, where would you be without Josh Kelly? I mean,
And big catch
there's
after big catch. Yeah.
well, and they're he just makes plays, and
Yeah.
these are
But they're timely though. I mean, a lot of them are just when you've got to go get a first down. He seems to be a guy that's on the right end of that over and over.
yeah, he's just been really productive every game, and
What was the what was the stat you gave on the broadcast? That was an awesome stat.
well, he's got coming into this is before Saturday's games,
Yeah,
so we'll need to look at this like after Saturday. But heck, it's even maybe more impressive now because I
maybe.
think what did he put together a 10 catch, 89 yard,
Yes.
day,
Yep.
and a couple of punt returns and all that. Coming into the game versus Arizona State, though, through 3 weeks, he had more catches and yards than the following that exited your program back in December. Miles Price, who's at Indiana, Jerron Bradley, who's at Boston College, Jaden York, who's at Houston, Tyler King, who's at Wyoming, JJ Sparkman, who is at UTSA, and Loic Fungi, who's at Vanderbilt. He had more catches and yards than all of those guys combined to
That's
this point.
wild. That's a crazy stat.
Yeah, and I just think a couple things. One, it says to you, man, Josh has been really impressive. But two, it just shows you what you were working with in a lot of the skill spots the last couple of years.
You
I mean
get a,
that, yeah, I
a
mean that's a painful realization.
it is.
One guy comes in and replaces six production wise.
That's where you go at the trade deadline and trade one player for six different prospects, and it's working out pretty good for you. So he's
Well, and that's what they say. If whenever you make a trade, whoever ends up with the best player
yeah,
usually wins the trade because the
yeah,
best player are those are rare.
yeah,
So,
and definitely seems that way. So yeah, Kelly's a big part of it.
and Caleb Douglas has been really good too. I
Man,
mean,
he is. Yeah, I think he
yeah,
may be a little underrated right now
I agree.
because we're not talking about him enough, and he made some really big catches for you. 5 for 63, but a lot of those big plays that were drive sustaining plays as well. So yeah, completely agree. And he made a pretty nice catch that was called a touchdown initially. I don't know what they were looking at because he looked 2 or 3 feet out of bounds, but um, got the penalty on it. Okay, enough of my jabbering. This is the Ask Level podcast. We got a handful of questions. So here's the first one. Did it Barron look a little off? This one's from Matt. Did Barron look a little off, or was it the offensive play calling that got a little bit more conservative as the game went along?
I mean, I think Arizona State has a lot to do with a lot of this schematically. They just, and again, I'm just going to take the head coach at his word, and basically, this is what we saw. They just weren't gonna. They were coming in going, "Hey, run it, go for it. We'll tackle it. we don't think you can beat us, but we're not giving up anything deep. And there was four, five, six drops. Is that on the receiver? Could Barron have delivered those balls a bit better? I mean, like
Hmm.
one was a shovel pass that just got blown up in the backfield. I think one of your RPO concepts, he would have been running into the north end zone. You throw it to Caleb Douglas. He's got two DBs around him. One gets his hand kind of in the window
Hmm.
just before the ball gets there. Can't hold on to it. That would have been, one of your chunk plays. If he connects on it, he maybe scores.
Might have. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, but here's the thing about Barron. Did he turn it over?
No.
I mean, was it good enough?
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
mean,
and so I think Arizona State, and people may disagree with that, and that's fine, but I think they had something to say about that, the way they played it, and I thought he was good at times. Would he like to have a few throws back? Sure, no doubt.
hmm
But and did he have to throw it quicker than he wanted to on a couple of times? I mean, there's one time
yeah.
on a screen where he's about to get hit and he has to throw it, and Taj Brooks looks around, the ball like lands at his feet, and he's like, "What are you throwing at me for?" Well, Barron's about to get popped, and he
Yeah.
did get
Just
popped
threw
one
it away at
time
his feet. Yeah.
and laid there, and I thought, "Oh no."
Oh my gosh, yes. When he
Yeah.
just lays there, it's like,
Yeah. One time he throws it into the stands. To me, this is the maturity of the Baron Morton. Instead of
agree.
spinning it around, scrambling again, and maybe taking a big loss via a sack, he just says, nope. I mean, this is some of the maturity there. So actually, for as much people may see that is a negative, I think there's a lot of positives there too. And I think it's a pretty good defense that he went against. And they came in giving up only 62 yards on the ground. I
Hmm.
think they've been a pretty good defense overall. We'll see if it stays that way. I mean, again, all we have to go off of is the small sample size that we've got. But I think there was a few bright spots there for sure. But I certainly get the feeling a bit disjointed, or they just made you work for it. There was
Hmm.
just not a lot of easy there to it. And I think that's the part where it felt like, oh, this is frustrating. Like I want this to look easier or feel easier. They're not all going to be Picassos, man. But you
Yeah.
don't have to hang every picture you paint in the Louvre.
Hey, you know how
And
to
I,
say that correctly too.
yeah,
You've been
that's
there
right.
recently.
I was there. Yeah, and the Mona Lisa is like this. I mean, it's
It's
just
that
like
small.
it's not 8.5 by 11, but it's not that much bigger than that. Um, yeah, and you know why that picture is so famous? Like, there's a million pictures
I
hanging
think
in
I've heard a story. I can't remember.
museums, but the reason that one is the famous one is because it was stolen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because it was stolen and then recovered,
Yeah.
and so it gave it a lot of
It's fame. Yeah.
street cred, if you will.
All right.
But yeah, the more you know. But yeah,
Art
they're not
lessons.
these are not all going to be. You're not scoring 35 points in the second quarter all the time, or scoring 66 in the game, or throwing
Right.
for 400 every night. But this is I guess I'm comfortable in saying this because I think he said as much to me after the game yesterday or over the weekend. Choice is that this is Joey's brand of football in some ways. Like, you have to win in different ways,
Yep.
and you're if you have to grind it sometimes, he's okay with that. He's okay with getting in a fight and playing field position and all that. He's not opposed to slinging it and then telling Kitley, "Hey man, foot on the gas, go for it, four down territory, here we go." Yeah, but I think this is Joey's brand of football. But hey man, because I actually, I'll just tell the behind the scenes story. Somebody tweeted at you, or excuse me, I guess it was me and Jensen
Uh,
after the game, and it was about the tweet was something to the effect of, this must be what Iowa feels like, punt to win or something." Okay.
yeah.
And I couldn't tell, is that are they frustrated with that sentiment? Is this a positive with that sentiment? Either way. But I didn't retweet it or respond to it because I didn't have time at the time, because we were leaving the broadcast booth and all that. But it just, how many 10 win or double digit win seasons have you had in the last, um maybe I'm missing something in there. Anyway, point is not a lot.
Not a lot.
Iowa's won 10 games 3 of the last 5 seasons.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd sign up for that. You want to tell me right now you're going to win 10 games in 3 of the next 5 years? I mean,
Yeah,
because I'm probably going to the playoffs if
I'd be
that's the
very happy.
case in
Yeah,
one of those
nowadays.
years. Yeah, I mean, so I don't
And
know if they
and
were,
and
yeah,
it's a
excited and
silly.
embracing it or frustrated by it. I don't know, but I get the sentiment. But this just looked a little bit different. It was businesslike. It was, styles make fights, and you're going to get into some of this, but a lot of these games are going to be kind of a grind. I feel like.
I think one thing that people, and this is my opinion, one thing that people may have an issue with is Joey McGuire coaches games like you see NFL coaches coach games. You see, um, literally, it's not about beating a point spread. It is not about blowing a team out by 21 points. It is
Winning the
about
game.
getting to the finished product, which is putting a win in that
A to
left-hand
B.
column.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, I mean, honestly, that's what it is. It's you get a feel for the game and you figure out how to win this particular game. And we've seen that over and over. I mean, you may have to go back to the Spike Dykes era because I can't think of your previous four coaches. I don't think we ever had where you just win games in so many different ways. You kind of had a identity as an offensive
Blueprint.
team,
Yeah.
or yeah, you were just a team that won this way, or you won this way, and if it got into this type of game, you're going to lose it. If it's not your style of game, you
Well, go
usually
back to
would.
year one. The 2 week span, and we refer to this
Yeah.
often, but it's
Oh,
fascinating
absolutely.
because not every team is good enough to do this or program. But 14-10 in Ames
Hmm.
and weather and field position
Oh yeah.
game and having to slug it out and just figure out a way. And then you come back at home the next week in good weather and you get into an offensive shootout and you have to score into the low 50s and they're in the 40s and you win that way. There's
Yeah.
just not many teams that can do though, but that I think that's ultimately what he's trying to build is that we just have to see what kind of game we're in and then roll with it. And
Yep.
if it's throw it all over the lot, if it's grind it, if it's let's punt, play field position. But the one common, and I talked about this on the broadcast too, because Joey mentioned this, like he was very outspoken about it a couple weeks ago. Must play good defense
Too.
because
Yep.
it in his coach's show. I kind of asked a bit more about it, like expand on your thought process here. And he said, well, it's the one thing that it travels, it overcomes bad QB play. If you have a QB that's just off that day, it typically does well in bad weather if there's a weather issue.
Typically.
It's
Yep.
just like the one constant in football where it typically prevails regardless of circumstance.
Sure.
So that's why he was, and you came in. It's funny. I've listened to and watched a lot of the ASU post game coverage, and I
Hmm.
think they just thought that Tech's defense was going to suck. I mean, it's pretty clear that they kind of felt like this was going to be a shootout, and that
Yeah.
that their Sun Devils would put up a ton of points, and that Tech's defense would be a pushover. But this is a young group that's getting better. There's a ton of sophomore and younger kids out there playing meaningful football that
Right.
don't have a lot of snaps and plays under their belt, and they're going to continue to get better, and you'll be better for it.
You survived
Uh,
it with without one of your best, and Braylon
and
Lux too.
and he's one of your I was about to say, and he's one of your older experienced guys. In
Yep.
fact, maybe one of, if not the most experienced guy.
Yep.
So especially in the secondary, but anyway, yeah, it maybe didn't look, but hey, you win and you cover.
Yep.
Like a quarter, because what would you go off as a 4.5 point favorite?
Yeah, and that was a late push in Tech's direction too.
Yeah, that's
It was
right.
sitting 2.5 to 3.5 most of the week.
Yeah.
Um, Here's a question from Brandel. Says, how would or level? How do you grade the performance on Saturday for Texas Tech? I don't know if that's a letter grade or what, but
Well, the result is A, because
obviously,
I
yeah,
mean but um I wish I had more context with their question. Like overall, I mean, because
yeah.
it's
I
like
guess you
hard
can
to
break
like.
it down: offense, defense, however you want to do it. I mean, special teams. You want to break it into three grades, and
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I think offense is probably like B or B minus. I think you have the 14-0 lead. You had to settle for too many field goal attempts maybe later in the game when you had a chance to put the game away. I think your offensive line had some struggles. Again, Arizona State has a lot to do with that, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I think Barron would probably have like to have a few throws back, and but I just and I think defensively, while people may come away feeling really good about it or better about it, I mean another quarterback maybe completes some of those deep shots where you
Yeah.
had guys running open and you
Yep.
you lived to tell about it, and he missed quite a few that were open, just couldn't make the throw, and you maybe get some credit there for forcing him to throw it sooner or on the run or whatever it may be. But and again, the 3/4 down stops huge. Uh, I tell you what'll get lost here. I mean, special teams to me is an A plus if we want to go that route, and I'll tell you why. Um, you have this kicking competition that is just
Crazy.
wildly fascinating to me. But how about Duda Banks with the blocked extra point?
Hey. Yeah.
I mean, that's like a sneaky play in this game. I think the last time he had one of those or a blocked field goal, whatever, was against UCF last year at home. But he's kind of starting to make a habit of that a little bit. And so I think special teams, yeah, I mean they deserve a lot of credit for what you did. But defensively, I'd probably go B minus, B plus.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit better just because I don't know if I'm grading on a curve, but because just statistically, if I could say that word, they come in, just somewhat woeful, and we just seen it really be a bleep show a lot of the time, and it just wasn't. I mean, they are getting better without your best cover guy on the back end, but I mean,
Yeah.
Scattaboo had 62 yards. Jordan Tyson had 3 catches for
Yeah.
33 yards or whatever. He's a
I mean,
non-factor.
you knew what they were going to do, and you were able, for the most part, to limit it, which is
Yeah.
pretty
Take their
impressive
good
on the
players away
defensive side.
from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought, yeah, I definitely think they did pretty good on the defensive side. All right. How about this question level? This one's from Mark. What is the toughest home game remaining, and what is the easiest in your opinion, level?
Oh man. So you have 4 home games left. Cincinnati, which is a 7 o'clock kick this Saturday night, blackout, by the
Who
way,
just won what 34 zip
34 to nothing. Yeah. Then
over
you've got
Houston?
West Virginia at the very end. You've got Colorado in early November, and you got Baylor here in 2 or 3 weeks. None of these are gimmies. What do these teams look like at the time that you get them?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean,
That's
there
always a
was a.
key. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, is Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, are they for sure playing? And are they healthy when Colorado rolls in?
Yep.
I mean, is West Virginia? Heck, I mean, there was a time 2 weeks ago where I thought Neil may not even be the coach when they roll in here. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yep.
I mean, it's but on paper, I don't know. Something tells me Baylor may be your toughest remaining home game.
Uh,
They are they're sneaky. They've gotten a lot better than last year, and they I don't Colorado had to some answered prayers there to get that one done. But Baylor they've been better on defense since Aranda took back over. Offensively, they've been rotating quarterbacks. They're still very competitive. Monterey Baldwin scares me. He couldn't cover him last year, even in a blowout. Um, and I think Cincinnati's going to be a tougher game than people realize too.
yeah.
They come in with maybe I think they'll be the best offensive line you've seen. They have another stud running back that's coming in. Is this parade of stud running backs in the Big 12 Conference? And you're getting a couple of them. Corey Kiner was over 1,000 yards last year. I think he's averaging over 100 yards a game this year. He's going to be a bit different than what Scattaboo was, and he's got some speed. He's a Cincinnati kid and all that. And then Dante Corleone, the Godfather, they're a D tackle right over the top of your redshirt freshman center. Makes
Yeah.
me a bit nervous. Brendan Sorsby, I believe he's the Penn State quarterback transfer. So they'll come in with some confidence because I think they're a bit better than everybody would have thought to this point. So it's a tough question to answer. I don't know if I'm ready to say easiest or toughest, but if you're forcing me to, I'm gonna say this. I think Baylor is your toughest, and I think Colorado is your easiest.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't trust the offensive line for Colorado. I just don't, and I don't trust their defense. And that's 6 weeks away. And
golly.
I just will because I think Central Florida UCF will do really mean things to the Buffs in Orlando this weekend.
I think to your point of not even wanting to answer the question, I mean, you can make a case for any of them in any of the
Yep.
positions over the next four games, and like you said, it's going to come down to when you play whom and what team what do they look like at that
Yeah.
time.
What
But
version of they are,
yeah,
are they at the time you get them? Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. The line I saw initially on the Tech Cincinnati game, I believe I saw 5.5 in favor of the home
Had you
team.
asked me this before the season started, when we hadn't seen anything yet, I probably would have told you West Virginia
Uh-huh,
would
I
have
would
been the
have.
toughest home game. They have a lot back. They won 9 games. Their quarterback causes problems with his legs. Um,
Be
but
honest,
I
I would have
just
said your last two games were your toughest, Colorado and West Virginia,
Yeah,
personally.
Colorado's so weird to try to
They
figure
are.
out because
They
they
are.
have some of the best players in the country, but it takes more than that to win.
I
And
mean, they had a guy throw basically two successful Hail Marys in a row.
yeah,
To-
but that's what it took.
yes,
And
exactly. Yeah,
he almost didn't get those throws off because feeling so much. Their offensive line is just not very good,
it's awful. Yeah,
and their defense, I think they can't run the ball. Their offensive line just struggles, and I just don't trust their defense. So we'll see what we get.
understood. Understood. Let's see. Another question. You kind of mentioned blackout coming up on Saturday. Someone asks, will we see the black jerseys?
Oh, I would
Uh,
guess you're in all black. Yeah, I think no doubt. I think I'd be shocked if not. I
announcement of
guarantee you, yeah, blackout and you're in all black. I think that I'll be stunned if that's not the case.
yeah, I would think so. 7 o'clock
Yeah.
game on a Saturday night, probably a pretty good chance of that. All right, now looking ahead to Cincinnati, the little bit of time we have left here, level. Cincy, a team that would have probably been in that bottom tier, right? Coming into the season of teams you could pick for the easiest home game, one of the probably three games, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Baylor, all probably would have been in that conversation. But all three of them look different than anticipated coming into the season. So, what has given the Bearcats the success they've had to be 3-1 to this point?
Well, I think they have better quarterback play than they did last year. I don't know how good they are. I
Yeah.
think they're just going to be much like Arizona State. They're just going to be solid. But I will stand by the statement. It's the best offensive line you will have seen to this point in the season. And I think it's going to maybe be the best running back you have seen to this point in the season as well. And we've got a stud receiver. I think they run the similar defensive scheme that North Texas runs. So there's a lot of three high safety look. I don't know if they change any of that, if they adjust, and then how you attack it. But we'll kind of see what we're going to get. But I mean, I like that it's a night game. I think Joey's now 14-3 at home.
Mhm.
I think I'm right here. I think he's 8-2 in Big 12 play at home, and with the win against Arizona State,
Yeah, yeah. You only got the two losses, one to Baylor and one to
Kansas
K-State last
State,
year. So
yeah.
that's it.
So, um, I like Tech's chances. I think home field gives you a bit of an advantage here, and as we saw over the weekend in true Big 12 games, the home team won 5 of the 6.
Yep.
And then you wonder why people are talking about like Utah and UCF in the way that they are as like a league title contender, along with maybe an Iowa State, but UCF and Utah specifically because they
The
went
road game.
and won games on the road,
Yep.
yeah, in the league. So those are going to be difficult to come by, but the teams that can do that and win the ones at home are going to be the ones that separate themselves. So yeah, I like home field here, and I mean it's sold out.
Yeah.
I will say this though, of all the teams in the Big 12, I feel like I have the least amount of historical knowledge and just walking around knowledge or whatever of Cincinnati than anybody else. I feel like I know a bit about the Pac-12 schools that just joined you,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
you
that's
you
fair.
kind of knew about Houston and UCF and even BYU, but Cincinnati is just kind of this like, huh?
Yeah.
Um, so but this is it's a big game again, and it gives you a chance to get off to a 2-0 start in the conference race.
Well, it is the last of the grouping from last year that came into the league that you haven't
Mhm.
played to this point. So
Right.
this will be for Tech's first matchup with Cincy, and it's just it's weird because it feels distant that they played in the college football playoff. What was that? 3 years ago? 4 years ago? It it, it feels like it's so much
In
longer ago than
Arlington, I
that.
think.
Yeah, yeah, and they
Yeah,
played.
Luke Fickle. Yeah, I mean this was they were at the mountaintop there just a few years ago.
So this is a team that obviously has some pride. Oh, this is also the Kelsey Mahomes Bowl, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, and so
So there'll
after
be some.
this, after you watch this show, go make you a bowl full of spaghetti, and then make some chili, and then with a lot of cheese, and dump it on all on top of each other, and then you can feel like a Cincinnatian.
I take it you don't like the Skyline chili.
I've never had it. I mean, I'm
I
not
haven't either.
opposed. I actually have tried a bite of somebody tried to recreate it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not bad. It was like, this
weird.
is strange. I mean, I feel like it'd be different if you were there
Right.
at that place and had it and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of
I
these
think that
days.
might be a bit different. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and I guess along those lines of Cincinnati, I guess Utah is going to be the one team that you go the longest without playing,
That's right.
unless
That's
it's
right.
in Arlington this year, maybe.
I'd sign up for that right now. So
I would too. Yeah,
we'll
in
see.
fact, give me the pin.
Keep winning games no matter what it looks like, and
Right.
I'm
Oh
I'm good
yeah.
with it. I'm good with it.
Yes. Want to know
Level.
each week, right? Like they
Want to
do
know?
over at yeah, at the Big Red Spread.
Yep, I'm good with it. All right, Level. Appreciate you, man. Good stuff as always.
Okay, you got it, man. Enjoyed it. Thank you to Kentex Roofing. Appreciate you, Woodman, and we'll talk to you next time.
That's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. It's been the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.